Well, I may or may not have spent the last week's recap news video on just the live stream news from the big summer thing, and I've kind of been sleeping on the card reveals for D-BT02, and now we're quite far into the card pool and there's a lot to talk about. Hello everyone, today the intros won't be long because I really have a lot to talk about in this video. We have a lot of card reveals from D-BT02, not just from today but from past weeks as well that we haven't talked about yet. Some of these seem really good, so I really want to talk about them. On top of that, there's a new Zero set that got announced. There was also the producer Q&A at the end of today's stream, and I won't really be talking too much about it in this video because I will link the VOD of that stream where I translated his comments to the best of my ability to the live audience, and so you guys can watch that. But I want to make a separate video talking about everything that the producer's been doing lately, because it's not just what he talked about today, but there's been like interviews and things like that where he's really been talking about a lot of other concepts that I think are worth discussing about and not just like crammed into the corner of today's video, because it's already going to be long without it, so I don't want to like make it even more crammed. Of course, if you still need to pick up any overdress product, make sure to head over to parkage.com. I think the pre-orders and most stock for a lot of the start decks might be running out. I'm not entirely sure, but they do sell singles for D-BT01, so you can already order those. And on top of that, of course, pre-order the upcoming sets too, so make sure you do that before stock runs out, because overdress has been really hot so far. On top of that, Springfest registrations are finally open for both Vice Schwarz as well as Vanguard Premium, so they're doing this on a week-by-week basis, and the first week is Vice and Premium, so make sure you sign up, because after next Monday the signups are closed and you won't be able to get in anymore. So make sure you sign up and don't wait on it, don't forget about it, do it quick. You can update your deck list if you need cards from D-BT01 and stuff like that, but just do your registration before it's too late. Next week it's going to be V Premium and Overdress Standard, so again, do that as fast as possible, because once they hit the player cap, it's a question if you'll actually be in or not, and you'll just be put on a wait list. Anyway, let's start with some Zero stuff, because they announced the next set for Zero, which is the second set for Legion. So this set releasing on June 1st, which is of course the month of the 1.5 year anniversary for Zero, will contain support for, as we can see, Dark Regulars, Dimension Police, Gold Paladin, Shadow Paladin, Pale Moon, and Oracle Think Tank. So you can see here from left to right, on the very left, that is the Amon Legion, the first Revival Legion confirmed for Zero, and this one is pretty damn crazy. It might be the rebirth of Reiji if they don't nerf it a little bit. Then we have, of course, Sinbuster for Metalborg, something I'm super excited about, because Daikaiser combined with Sinbuster was the first time that DP was ever meta, and it's really exciting to see them come back. Maybe we'll get the Revival Legion for True Great Daikaiser, that'd be honestly amazing as well. Then Bluish Flames for Gold Paladin here, the first wave. They do have two waves with Prominence Glare later on, but I'm assuming this will be Percival and Prominence Core with the Aglo Veils, so that'll be super hype. Then for Shadow Paladin we have the Witches archetype, so I'm curious how they're going to port that forward, because there's no grade 0 triggers in this game. Then we have the Pale Moon Legion. Pale Moon only got 2 cards of Legion support in the entire Legion era, and so maybe they'll port forward some of the future Silverthorn support from G. I guess we'll find out. And then of course we also have Battle Sisters for Oracle Think Tank, and we'll see how they buff those, because the cards definitely didn't feel as amazing. Maybe we'll get a Revival Legion for Amaterasu early, so that will also be very nice. So that's the big news for Zero. The new set got announced very early, and the reveals will be starting in 2 days, so look forward to that. And of course you can catch the reveals on my Discord in the announcements section every morning. Alright, so I won't be going over any Token Rambo stuff in this video, so if you want to check that out, the full set list is already out, and I think it will be covered by the other content creators, so you can check that out over there. Today we're going to be taking a look at the D-BT02 stuff. So starting off with Dragon Empire, we have Blaze Maiden Tanya. So this is a grade 2, just a rare, so just some support for Blaze Maidens, basically for Nirvana. When placed on Rearguard Circle, you can count almost 1 to Collie grade 0 from drop zone to Rearguard Circle. So this is another way to basically spawn out another Trickstar, because Nirvana's revival is only once per turn, but I never really felt the need to spawn out more than 1 per turn, so I don't think this skill is that necessary. Then her second skill is when she attacks, you can soul blast 1 to give a grade 0 unit plus 5k power. So I guess if you want to also revive the Sunrise Egg, then you can give that plus 5k, so an 11k booster, which is pretty decent, I guess. And then the other card that they showed is Blaze Maiden Zara. So during your turn, if Ryu or Reno is on your Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, she gets plus 5k power. When I first saw this card, I thought this really wasn't anything, but when I think about it, Ryu is a 12k attacker on grade 2, and this turns into an 11, making that column be 23, which is actually pretty good considering that takes no counterblast, and basically no setup, right? Because Hideyu just needs to attack and this just needs Hideyu to exist. And so 23k column for no effort is pretty good. But at the same time, this deck is super explosive with the Varinas, and like you want to be powering up your Varinas most of the time with Nirvana. So I don't know if this really needs to be there, I guess, but 11k booster regardless is pretty nice, so this might see some play in some builds, or maybe if the Blaze Maidens get their own kind of focus later on, that'd be a cool deck as well. Then they showed some support for Bruce, so first we have Diablos Edge Grantee, so he has a skill, until end of turn you can Soul Blast 1, your opponent cannot intercept, and if you're in Final Rush he gets plus 5k power. This one doesn't seem that good. Soul Blast 1 for plus 5k just does not sit well with me. This grade 2 though, Diablos Madonna Viola, man, she looks so good. Her art is amazing, but sadly the skill is not so much. When she attacks from rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is Violence Bruce, Canalmas 2, she gets plus 10k until end of turn. Festival Collection literally gives a much better grade 2 than this, and so for that reason I think this is, again, a bit overcosted for what it is. Now this is the card I really wanted to talk about for a while now, because this order seems like amazing support for Bastion, and this is Line Up Chosen Knights. So this is a rare, and it's a grade 3 order, of course has Bastion and the boys in the art. So this says, Canalmas 1, Soul Blast 1 to play it. Activate the following effect based on the number of grade 3 units you control. 2 or more, so your Vanguard plus 1 rearguard. Choose one of your units and give it plus 5k power till end of turn. For Canalmas 1, Soul Blast 1, so far not that impressed. 3 or more, draw a card. That's already not too bad. Canalmas 1, Soul Blast 1 to draw, that's like Branke, pretty good. And then 4 or more, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets drive plus 1 until end of turn. So this is Canalmas 1, Soul Blast 1 to plus 2, basically, right? And give power as well. So this is really, really good. Like, I think that order from the start deck is probably being cut for this because it's less cost for what it does. It gets you a card draw. It basically lets you, I mean, obviously you need to have a lot of grade 3s, but the Bastion decks are like, outside of Control Bastion, which is a different build, the regular Bastion build already is like packed to hell with grade 3s. So I think that honestly this is a pretty easy condition to achieve, and the fact that you can do it on turn 3 already because you don't have to like Soul Blast grade 3s or anything seems really good to me. So this card I definitely think is going to be a super important pickup from D-BT02 for Bastion, no matter what. Like, especially if they bring out any other Keter Sanctuary builds that focus on grade 3s, which I kind of doubt. I think that's going to stay Bastion's thing. This card is going to be amazing. So for Hexa Orb is not so much, but Bastion, man, so good. Like, drive plus 1 is also like another shot of hitting a grade 3 from your drive check, so you can go like trigger grade 3, and there you go, something you couldn't do in the past. Just really good overall. Like, honestly, such an amazing card. They also got a grade 3 rearguard, Atsushi's Cane Cortese. When she is revealed by your drive check, you may call this card to an open rearguard circle. If you do until end of turn, she gets boost. So this also feels like good Bastion support, because I've noticed quite a few times playing the build that when you don't hit the Dark Strain, you're basically kind of left with like either a bunch of grade 3s that can't boost in the back, or just some empty rearguard circles with nothing. And so this does actually feel like it might fit in to the build, because she does actually have a skill that's sort of necessary, and so I quite like that about the card. So I think she's quite cool. Then we got a support card for Orfist, and I actually really like this one because until now we've played the column attacker, but this one feels like it's a perfect fit that doesn't feel awkward at all. And this is the Cardinal Soldier Plastier. So when on rearguard circle, his attack boosted by Shadow Army token hits, you draw 1. It can hit anything. Doesn't have to hit Vanguard, can hit rearguard too. So this kind of adds to that control Orfist that people are kind of thinking about. So you basically start like pushing at rears with, you know, your tokens or with Plastier here to draw extra cards, and essentially it's hit pressure no matter what that your opponent doesn't want to give you, because extra card draw means that fat hand is getting even fatter, and that's not something that Orfist opponents really want to see. They also showed Whirlpool Robo Ram Drought. If you have a set order, this unit gets intercept and is a grade 1, so it can intercept from the back row after boosting, which is pretty cool. I mean, this kind of card, I remember people didn't think much of it when it was in with Melek, but then it turned out to be really good. Of course, there you could combine it with Protect too, so that's a different mechanic in general. But I do like this guy. I don't think he'll be played much, at least for the time being, but I do like more defensive options. And of course, it's only a 5k intercept, so that's also kind of like, And in general, I think space is already getting pretty tight in a lot of these decks that I don't really think this will necessarily make the cut. Then we had some Stoichio support. So first one was Sylvan Horn Beast Boyarkon. So Canalmas 1 on rearguard circle. Until end of turn, he gets the following ability. Back row rearguard circle when he he attacks, it battles all of your opponent's front row units in one attack. So they basically printed a Bison Vermilion in a way for Magnolia. So this is cool Magnolia support. It's only a common, isn't it? That's actually pretty cool. So for Counterblast 1 though, it's a little bit heavy because this deck already counterblasts a lot. Like every turn you're basically counterblasting for Magnolia and Gunosia, and that is pretty expensive already. So adding to that isn't too optimal. But if they print some kind of countercharge for Magnolia, then this card I think would definitely see some play because it's simply a cool card. Like having that kind of like resource removal is kind of what I'm calling it here, because like the deck doesn't really have any removal unless you splash in stuff from Zorga in this upcoming booster set. So this is actually pretty nice to kind of give you that kind of counterbalance, especially when you're getting rushed as the Magnolia player. So I think it's actually quite cool. And then they also showed Sylvan Horn based Crocotte. So this says when it attacks or boosts, you can Soul Blast 1 and it gets power plus 2k for each of your rearguards till end of that battle. That is not bad, because generally you're playing with a full field and it's for each of your rearguards, so it's basically plus 10 for Soul Blast 1. And so the only downside is that it's a 6k, so it's only going to be maximum 16, huh? Yeah, I don't know. Now that I realize that, it doesn't seem that hot. I thought it was 8k, so with 8k it was like, oh, this is pretty good because it's like pretty easy to achieve that and not very restrictive, and doesn't have to attack from back row either. But now it's like, maybe not. Next we had more of the Dark States stuff revealed. We had Time Gyrate Dragon. When placed on rearguard circle, it's a grade 3. Put a card from hand to soul to draw a card. Straight up just filter. Like you just straight up put whatever in your hand into your soul. You can set up in, for example, Barrow Magnus, you can literally set up what you want to call out and then, you know, just draw a card just like that. Seems good. On top of that, you could even play this in Bruce and basically just like set up card, like put a card into the soul just to filter and then take it back with Protobulb, right? That seems pretty good to me as well. So this seems like it could see some play. It's not a bad card whatsoever. And then we got a grade 2, looks like a King of Fighters character to me for some reason, the Cyclone Cycler. Pretty nice name. When she boosts, she's a grade 1. If you have 5 or more cards in your soul, counterblast 1 and put her into the soul to choose 3 of your front row units, and they get power plus 5k until end of turn. This seems really good, and like not just Barrow Magnus, that this is like obviously like kind of feeling like it's made for, but in Bruce too. Like keep in mind that she can basically boost the first attack that you do in Bruce, power up the front row, and then they get restood by Bruce, and you do have 5 soul at the start of the battle phase usually, you know, or you work towards that. This seems like it could see play in Bruce too. Like I generally really like this card. She's a good grade 1, and especially in Bruce, counterblast is really not an issue, at least not for the time being. And so I could see cards like this being played. Like this is generally not bad whatsoever, and I think that in Barrow Magnus this could see play, but Barrow Magnus I feel like doesn't get as much out of that because it resets its own field. So there it's kind of like maybe you want to use the counterblast for something else. Then they showed the first foils from this set, and they started with Eugene of all things, because Eugene got a double rare called Drag Ritter Idris. So Idris says he's a 5k grade 1, so these are, you know, new main flashbacks. If an opponent's rearguard has been retired during this turn, you counterblast 1 and choose one of the following effects. This unit gets power plus 10 cancel out of turn. That's the first choice. Second one is put him into the soul to choose an opponent's grade 2 or less rearguard and retire it. That is actually interesting. It doesn't patch up, you know, Eugene's biggest issue, which is that if your opponent doesn't call anything, he can't do anything, and doesn't really get over resist either, which is the other issue. But apart from that, it's pretty fine. Like you don't use your counterblast for too many things in this deck, so I think it's okay. Like whether it's a 15k booster, which is I think is quite nice for pushing numbers, you know, and actually rushing your opponent down, or you know, just to get more soul to use your effect faster, and also to extra proc. You know, we have a lot of those cards that do extra procs, you know, to keep popping more rearguards after you use, you know, your first skill of Eugene. So it could see play, but I need to see more support for Eugene from this upcoming set. Then we also have Drag Ritter Nasr. This is a common. When he intercepts, your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, he gets shield plus 10 cancel in the battle. No. I mean, it's fine as a good defensive card. Like it's 15k shield is nothing to scoff at, but it's very, very tight setup, and it has to intercept. It's not like Brody where it's like when put to rearguard to Guardian Circle. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but otherwise it's okay. So completely forgot to mention that the official lore site got a release date in English, which is the 21st, which is this Friday. So we'll be able to read the Vanguard overdress lore in English on Friday, which is really hype. A lot of people have been waiting for this, so I'm quite hyped to, you know, finally know about that as well. All right, and this is where the Zorga stuff starts up, because because man, oh man, some of these cards are really good. First things first, we have this grade 1 rare, which is Fairy of Tragic Love. Quite a name there. Rearguard Circle, when the attack this unit boosted hits a Vanguard, so pretty specific condition, bind this unit to choose an order card from your bind zone and put it into your hand. So we've had, you know, like recurring the orders from your drop zone to your hand before in the deck, but now you actually have hit pressure that potentially lets you recycle your orders from your order zone and put them right back into your hand, so you actually get priority on their activation, you know, when you cast them for Alchemy Magic. Just overall really good. And it doesn't say normal order. This can also be a blitz order, and while for the time being we can't bind any blitz orders, but this does give future potential where that might be an explorable space. We will find out. But for the time being, I really like this card. Just having, like, also binding itself is no real condition for this deck, because the only bad part is that it doesn't go to the drop zone, so you can't like revive it for the future. But it's an on-hit Vanguard, so I think for the time being, like, you're only gonna get like 1 or 2 activations from this per game, I think. So it's a really cool card, and honestly gives some interesting ideas for Zorga in general. On top of that, we got Lowering Pistol Ragina. So Guardian Circle, if your drop zone and bind zone have a total of 3 or more order cards, she gets plus 5k power. So that's a continuous on Guardian Circle, which means that kind of like Brody, you can play her and then use her quite aggressively to basically just like call her down to bash face and then intercept with her and then basically have a 10k shield, right? A lot of decks need that kind of like 10k shield option card, and Ragina might just be the one for Zorga as well. So it's a pretty interesting support card. I definitely like the kind of space they're exploring with this. Then today we got some really important Hexa Orb support, because I think this deck is off to a nice start, but it's not as good as some of the other decks so far. But I think with this first card in particular, it already feels really good, because I know a lot of people were saying like they want more ability to check top card, more cards, more good grade 2s and things like that. Well, here we go. Subtle Knight Owain. When he's placed on Rearguard Circle, if your Vanguard is Hexa Orb Sorceress, you can Soul Blast 1, not even Counter Blast, look at top 2 of your deck and then choose up to 2 from among them, put them on top of your deck, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So because it says up to 2, you can choose to put 0 or 1 and put the rest in the bottom, or you can put both, right? I've had cases where I was testing Hexa Orb where I checked top 2 and both of them were like, you know, with a skill, and then had to put 1 on top, 1 on bottom, but then both of them were critical triggers, and I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do that, but I have to. So with this, having that ability to like stack the top deck and also looking at 2 and being able to keep 2 on top is also really nice, and I definitely like this card a lot. It just helps you to accelerate your stack, and I think that's super nice. And honestly, like, this deck is getting better and better with every support card, so I'm curious to see what like the double rare and the triple rare will be for this deck as well. And then the Rearguard Circle effect, the other one, is when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, you can count almost 1 to give him plus 10k. So he has that skill too, so he can actually like triple a trigger with Hexa Orb, because she already doubles 1. So I guess count almost 1 to get another 10 isn't too bad. You know, big numbers bash face equals good. And then we also have Knight of Heavenly Roar Ridi. So her skill is, she's a 8k grade 1, Soul Blast 2, and the power increase from your drive check trigger effects get power plus 5k until end of turn. This is like that one card in God Hand, basically, but you have to Soul Blast 2 for it, but that power increases for the entire turn. So that means if you check double trigger or you do, you know, your triple drive and all 3 are triggers, you basically get, just from the raw triggers themselves, basically get 45k power, and then Hexa Orb gives even more than that. So honestly, like, there's so much soul blasting going on that I hope that they get some good soul charging cards that aren't just, you know, Rafluke from the start deck, because these cards are looking really good, and Hexa Orb might actually be quite legit, because now they have like stack manipulation, but also huge power columns, and also plays they can do without persona writing, which is one of the things that the deck kind of lacked. Magnolia could do quite a lot without persona writing, but now this deck also needed that, and I think it's honestly getting it right here. And the fact that you can like go through your deck and like your stack so easily now with these cards in Hexa Orb does mean that you can hit the persona writes easier as well, which is super nice. And now these are the final 2 actual like skill card reveals for the second booster set that I really want to talk about. First things first is the double rare for Zorga, which is Regurgitation from the Underworld. And I think everyone's been talking about the art, because it's quite literally the Underworld puking up spirits, and those spirits turn out to be cards. So it's a grade 3 order, so you can't play it until turn 3. You can count almost 1 and Soul Blast 1 and choose any player's rear guard and retire it. So this means either your own or your opponent's. Then you choose up to 1 card with the same grade as that card from your drop zone and call it to Rearguard Circle. If you are alchemagicking with this card though, you may choose up to 2 instead of 1 to call. So this is really cool, because count almost 1, Soul Blast 1 to pop 1, call 2 from drop is really nice, because this allows allows you to, like, first, Zorga now has the ability to actually control the opponent's field a little bit, which is nice, but popping out 2 just like that is also really good because this, I don't know, maybe the mill order will get cut. Like, this of course doesn't give any power, so optimally you want to be combining this with, you know, I guess the soul body condensation or whatever that one's called kind of like is a worse version of this, because this gives you 2 and a pop for just a little bit more cost. But at the same time, you can also pop your own rear guards, for example something with an on-place effect like the Adamantis, and basically pop it, you know, kill it, and then call 2 out of drop zone to just distribute that power again, which I think is a really nice play as well. Overall, I think this card is really good and will definitely be a staple in Zorga. But speaking of staples in Zorga, they also showed a grade 1 Rogue Headhunter. This is the triple rare for Zorga. I honestly feel like the order might have been basically been more triple for, like, in terms of quality, but of course, you know, just to keep cards accessible, I think that makes more sense. And actually that makes me think about that, the fact that, like, you know, the cards that are must gets at like 4 of are double rare, so they're a bit easier to get than the triple rare that maybe this won't be a 4 of, maybe it will be, we'll find out. And so his skill is rearguard circle. If you played an order this turn, he gets plus 5k power, so 13k beater I think is relevant enough, especially when you have like the grade 2 that gets 5k, so it's like a 15k on its own, you power it up with a bunch, so 13k turns it into nice magic numbers on top of that. So just for pushing that kind of like numbers game, which Zorga already does really well, I think is also very important. But the second skill is the main focus of this card. When you place it on rearguard circle, the next time you would alchemy magic in order to play it this turn, you can reduce the cost by counterblast 1, and in brackets it says reduce it from the total cost, so from 2 alchemy magics combined. This does not countercharge even if it would have become a negative number. This is an important point, of course, but I think that went without saying. But this basically with Hendrina combined makes it so that you can play a bunch of orders basically in alchemy magic with no cost whatsoever, and that's been sort of like a big weakness in Zorga, is that eventually it runs out of cost because you're counterblasting, you know, for Zorga's effect to revive stuff, counterblasting for the orders, and so you eventually do run out of resources. And so these new cards definitely do help to aid that, and it's a nice way to also like give countercharge without giving countercharge, if that makes sense, because you're like lowering the cost of a counterblast, which is basically a countercharge. So I like this kind of design. I hope they actually bring it to more nations as well, because it's really cool so far. So yeah, really good card, good cards overall. I mean, I've kind of explored my thoughts and opinions on most of these cards so far today. There's a few more cards that they revealed. There's a couple promos for V series still. Actually no, there's one overdress promo, which is the Flash Scissors Monsters Scissors Bar. So this is for Brankgate. It's a 10k power grade 2. When he attacks on rearguard circle, if you have a set order in your order zone, soul blast 1 to give him plus 5k until end of that battle. This to me is pretty doo-doo for the time being, because you have to soul blast with the 5k, whereas Prison has grapple external that doesn't have to do anything to get 5k, and then Orfist has, you know, Cubizia, which also doesn't need to do anything to get 5k. So this seems a little bit redundant, which is good. Like, I'd rather promos be redundant than busted, so honestly that's fine by me. But there are a couple of V series promos for shop tournaments which we'll eventually get in English, because lately they've been pretty, you know, on point with them. So first we have Knight of Treasured Bow Vitrinus. So this is a gold paladin card, so not Keter Sanctuary. Back row rearguard circle, if 2 more of your rearguards were called by your card's ability this turn, he gets boost and power plus 5k. So this is a pretty good fit already in, you know, Mr. Gurgwit. That's already quite nice, and maybe will be in the bluish flame build coming in the clan collection. And then the second skill is when you put him on guardian circle from other than your rearguard circle, soul blast 1, and then under that battle when this unit would be retired, you can move it to an open back row rearguard circle instead. So you can basically, you can reuse that skill, you know, because it doesn't work from intercepting, but if you guard with it from hand or from top deck, you can basically soul blast 1 to just like put it on the board and then boost with it next turn, which for Gurgwit this seems like a really good support card. So good Gurgwit support, especially after losing Percival. I think the deck did need a bit of support, so that's a pretty good way to do it. And then for grade nature, there's also a promo grade 1 Veteran Janitor Siga. So at the end of your turn, soul blast 1 on rearguard circle and retire all your rearguards in the same column as this unit. If you retire 2 units, choose one of your Vanguards and search your deck for up to 1 card with the same card name as that card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this is good because, I mean, you know, in overdress you'd be like, oh, Persona Ride, but honestly for V series this is just basically, you know, cycling your grade 3s. In Isabel you basically get to search for more Isabels and like keep proccing that search effect. For Big Belly is just another axle marker generator, you know, for next turn and things like that. I think a card like this, especially when it costs soul blast 1, seems pretty good, so I think this could be playable pretty damn well. And then the last thing, you know, I'm not talking about the Q&A too much, but they did show the Blaster Dark Encounter card art, and they, you know, it looks really good. It looks fantastic. You know, Blaster Dark is a fan favorite, and it kind of made sense with Nahalem coming back that this would come back as well. I think they are ride lines, at least from my understanding. So basically, like, I think the ones in the lore that got mentioned were like Conroe, Gojo, Nahalem, and Overlord. And then for Shadows, it was, you know, Full Bow, Javelin, Blaster Dark, Final Blaster Dragon. So in the lore chapter, they were actually mentioned. So I guess they'll be the ones for the actual ride deck. And so I guess that's pretty cool. I hope they work quite generically so that like all of the Keter Sanctuary support can kind of just like get put into it without them having to like explicitly support it. ModiP did talk about it in the interview that like they are basically like, you know, they'll be supported in a year's time, and then other nations will probably get some encounter cards as well. And encounter cards won't necessarily be like, you know, in the past as well. They could also explore like what if timelines or other like things like in the future, or things like, you know, in that 3,000 year time span that to us seems like non-existent, but actually for, you know, the present Cray, which is 3,000 years in the future, would actually be in the past. But yeah, I don't really want to talk about the stuff from the Q&A with ModiP too much. I will make a separate video about that, and you guys can look forward to that. For the time being, check out the VOD in the description. Make sure you follow the Twitch because you can actually see all that stuff live, and I did the translations there at the end of the stream. I was a little bit tired because doing a lot of that translating definitely exhausts you quite a lot, so I apologize if I seem grumpy towards the end because I definitely was quite tired from doing that. But thank you for those of you for bearing with me and watching that too. Apart from that, I think that's more or less it. There's definitely been a lot of cards to talk about today, so hopefully you guys do feel updated. The full set list is out in English as well on the official website, so overdress first booster is just around the corner. You know, I got my sneak peek cards and I can't wait to start playing, honestly. It's gonna be so much fun. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate y'all for coming through for the channel, you know, for the streams. This, you know, we're almost at 42,000 subs. I really appreciate those of you coming through. There's still quite a few that aren't subs, so if you want to support the channel, I do appreciate it really, really, really big time. And yeah, lots of exciting stuff coming up, whether you're into V, overdress, Zero, Premium, whatever it may be. So much hype. Also Springfest coming up, so I think overall everyone for Vanguard is just feeling really, really in high spirits. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you ModiP for blessing our game and just all the amazing stuff you do for our game. Thank you so much. I feel like I don't express that enough in videos, so yeah, just gotta put that out there. But anyway, thank you so much for watching everyone. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.